Welcome back, everybody, to the Ever Evolving Truth. We have calmed down. Sterner and Leah have duked it out in the ring.
You should see his face. I totally kicked his ass.
In the two rows from ringside ring, which by the time you listen to this, it's already debuted. If you haven't listened to them, please do.
Somehow we're not even in the same place, and she bitch slapped me. I don't know how that was possible.
Clearly, Sterner's not made out for wrestling, like actual wrestling.
I'm not.
He can talk about it. He can nerd out about it, but he can't actually do it. In case anybody's wondering, I did remember my thought for the end. At the end of the last segment, I said I forgot my thought. I do remember it now, and I think this might be interesting. This may be a completely different show. However, and I want to preface this by saying I am on board with the people that say this, but the people that are complaining about the two-party system that say we won 10 parties, this what Sterner was talking about in Canada, where they have more than two parties. This is what happens. It allows these fringe parties to gain power here and there and create laws like this. So yes, the two-party system has its flaws. Yes, it would be nice to have more than two parties at times. However, there are downfalls to that as well. There are negatives that I feel like people are not recognizing when they scream the two-party system. Again,
yeah, that's very thought-provoking, actually.
Yeah, I think we should have more than two parties, but there are dangers there.
My husband hates the more than two-party thing because of what you just said. He said there's never a true majority.
Now, if you want to say, look, let's get rid of the DNC and the RNC, I'm 100% for that. Like get the fuck out of there and let's have 20 candidates run from whatever they consider themselves instead of having these major organizations pick the candidates. But anyway, again, a discussion for another show. But where are we at now again, Greg? Because I completely forgot what the order was.
So I purposely finished with that last segment because I really wanted to make sure that those points got made in their full detail so everybody could speak to it and we could really hash out the heavy issue, the hard issue, by the way. This is not easy stuff. You really think through it. So number 2, I'd like to start this one because I do have something to say and it feeds into this add not subtract idea that I have. But the topic is, are PC police and cancel culture social justice warriors really just fanatical trolls wearing masks of virtue? And that is hyperbolically stated because obviously there's going to be some people who say, of course, they're not all fanatical trolls, but we know that a good number of them are fanatical trolls. So I'm going to tell a little bit story, in my other career as a pro wrestling podcaster, soon to be anyway. There was this, there's an announcer called Jim Ross, and he's working for a company, AEW. There's a wrestler in AEW who has I think his lifestyle really is this. Well, I know it is actually, but his gimmick is very ambiguous, androgynous. Okay, he's kind of a gender fluid character. Okay, by the name of Sonny Kiss. There's this wrestler, and he's called Sonny Kiss. Anyway, Jim Ross was on Twitter. He was on the show, and he referred to Sonny Kiss as a she, and the Twitter trolls roasted the shit out of Jim Ross and called him every name under the sun. He was a bigot. He was a racist. He was all these things. Typical fanatical trolls that we're talking about, okay? And Jim Ross told a story on his podcast the next week, and he said, Sonny Kiss came up to me, and he said, I don't want you to worry about what everybody's saying to you. You've been one of the only people here who has been always nice to me, always supportive to me, giving me advice, when you didn't have to. And I really appreciate your support. And guess what? I identify with he and she. So you didn't do anything wrong. And I don't want you to pay attention to what they're saying. And that quote from Sonny Kiss, I thought was such a very profound thing to say. And I know not every person who is not, anybody that is transgender or gender fluid or non-binary or any of those things, not all of them would agree with Sonny Kiss, his verbiage there, that he identifies with he and she. But Sonny Kiss said, you know what, I identify with he and she, so whatever you call me, you're describing me, or at least part of me. And that got me thinking on a profound level that what he was really saying was, instead of going after people and saying, you didn't call me the right thing, you should have called me this, you shouldn't have called me this, and because you called me this, you are now this. You're a racist, you're a bigot, you're a bot, and a blah, 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 blah. And that got me thinking that, you know what? What he was really telling Jim Ross was, add a word, don't subtract a word. Okay? I'm not just a he. I also identify as she. At different times, in different settings, I identify with both. Not always at the same time, not maybe ever at the same time, but both words apply at different times. So he was basically saying, you know, adding a word to try to respect someone, okay, might be something we should think about in a larger view. So when we have situations like, okay, Gone with the Wind has to go because there's a racist depiction of you know, in the Civil War time, there's a racist depiction of black people, and maybe Boys in the Hood should have to go because it's a racist depiction of gangland culture in South Central LA, and there, you know, this should have to go and that should have to go. Here's what I think is missing from all this. Keep it all there. It's part of the history. Keep the statues up, keep the shows on, keep the images there. Don't ban the flag. Don't ban the symbol. Don't ban this, because you're not really banning the thing that it symbolizes. You're just banning the word or banning the symbol. What you really should do is say, you know what? Let's add to this. On Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime or whatever, let's add a Black Lives Matter stream where we can put all of the positive depiction of the black community, the positive depiction of the trans community, if you want to have a trans community stream, add it to the general history. Don't tell the world they can't do this anymore and they can't say that anymore and this can't be seen anymore and you can't say this anymore. Add, don't subtract. And if that's what we did, okay, instead of trying to rip down the statue of Christopher Columbus, you put a plaque next to it, educating them on the fact that he had some very butcher-like activities with the indigenous people in South America when he discovered it. You add that information. You don't have to rip down the Columbus statue to do that. You don't have to rip down or ban the Confederate flag to add information about how bad the antebellum South was or how bad slavery was. You don't have to kill it to explain or add knowledge to it. And that's really all I want to say on that as a starting point. I'd really like to hear your guys' opinion on that. And also, are these social justice warriors and these PC police type really fanatical trolls, or at least many of them are these fanatical trolls wearing their fake masks of virtue? And I've gone long-winded, so I'll give it to you guys now.
Again, there's so much. There's a lot I agree with you on, and a lot I disagree. Let me just get this on. The statues and the flag belong in museums. You can put that plaque in a museum. There's no reason why a person of color has to walk into a government building and see the Confederate flag flying in the fucking front yard. You know, that's disrespectful. It's ridiculous, and it's completely misguided.
It's also, in my opinion, if you really think about it, it's unconstitutional. It hinders their rights. It's the one way racism hinders the profound American rights of black people in this country. They can't get houses because of racism and red zoning. They don't get the best jobs. They're kept down in a cycle of poverty because of racism. Racism has an effect on these people. So I do believe in that case, when you're a racist person and saying racist things about someone in that sense, you are impeding on their rights.
Right. And also putting a plaque next to a Confederate statue, or let's call a treasonous terrorist that we're somehow celebrating for some reason by erecting a statue or a flag. That's not teaching history. That's letting people to decide what they want their history to be. Putting it in a museum and having someone guide and say, this is what this actually means. This is what actually happened. This is what this person stood for. These are the facts. Learn them.
Yeah, relocate it to the museum,
yes.
and add the fucking plaque.
Yes, but
explaining it better.
But again, they should not. They should be torn down from government buildings.
I think there is a case to be made for that. We don't have enough time to go into all the whys and wherefores, but I do think there's a case to be made for that, Jeff. But
Right.
but that is not the same thing as people tearing it down, while other people are saying, "Hold on, that's something that's very important to us." And maybe those people don't know the facts or all the facts, so they have this emotional reaction to you ripping it down and say it's got to go without thought, without anything. It's got to go.
Again, I would say good. We've had to have this emotional reaction of it being there this whole time. So
But that's not what you said. You said relocate it. Don't tear it down and destroy it.
well, it's tough to destroy instead. They're pretty tough. So
You can do it though.
well, they can just rebuild a new one. It's not like I'm not sad about them getting. I think the symbolism behind a group of people uniting to tear down a symbol of racism and oppression is much more powerful and inspiring than letting it sit there.
But is it
Right.
beautiful when the people protesting it are physically fighting with the people tearing it down, and you got bloody humans on the ground? Is that beautiful?
This is going to sound terrible. In a way,
yes, I'm with you.
we change is not pretty. It never was.
Yeah,
so-
but it could be. I'll let you have your say there. I'm not gonna. I won't push you on that.
Well, some of the other things you were saying, I do agree with. As far as letting stuff like that on certain platforms so that we can view them, I get it, but the thing is, people are stupid. They're easily influenced. If someone does a documentary about the history of slavery and purposely puts misinformation in there, and someone who has racist tendencies watches that, it's just going to reaffirm their belief, and that's not based in fact. That's dangerous. That's how the KKK is still operating today. They're able to recruit easily easily fooled people that are weak-minded and fear that people of color are taking over their country. That's dangerous.
Are you talking about any specific films or anything like that?
No. I'm just saying, like, you talked about adding, like, have a BLM stream, but also allow the KKK to put out their shit, because
All right,
we're talking about completely free speech.
Then I have a really good question for you, because you're in film school. All right. D.W. Griffith's film Birth of a Nation is taught in every film school in the land because it was such a groundbreaking, innovative, artistic feat of brilliance, in spite of the fact that it was terribly racist. The KKK are the heroes of the film. So I ask you, as a person who is trying to get a film education, should you not have some platforms that you'd be able to access that film strictly for their artistic merits alone, in spite of the fact that we all know the KKK are not fucking heroes, and if somebody is going to be drawn to that ideology, they're going to probably be drawn in other ways anyway. But should D.W. Griffith's film go away and not be able to be seen, deplatformed everywhere, and can't see it anymore?
Well, the answer to that question is no. However, I will say that film school is kind of like my museum. I am not left to my own accord to decide who is the hero of that movie. And I will disagree when you say we all know that the hero is not the KKK. We don't all know that.
When I said we all, I meant the people who are progressive minded. That's what I meant.
Right. You don't even have to be progressive minded. You just have to be a decent human being. I don't care where on the aisle you fall. Racism should not be a Republican or Democrat thing or a progressive thing. It should be an all people thing. Being against race. So again, I am not left to my own. I'm watching that movie for the first time as a film student. Granted, I've seen it, 20 years ago, but I'm watching it again. Someone's seeing it for the first time. It is with the caveat. The professor, the instructor there is saying, here's the history behind this film. Yes, it was groundbreaking, but this man never recovered. And he made a second film that was not as good and that was not as well received because of the consequences of making the KKK. He was a publicly recognized racist human being. And if I'm watching that on Netflix, Greg, and I'm a racist, I'm not coming to that conclusion on my own. I'm not being led to I'm not being fed those facts about him as a director, him as a filmmaker. I am watching that and cheering on the KKK as a racist.
So how about when Netflix adds the Black Lives Matter stream and they do a documentary about that exact thing that your film professor told you about? Would you be okay with then equal representation of the facts and the film?
If I'm a inherently happy to be racist human being, I'm not watching the BLM stream to get the other side of it. That's the problem.
But it's there. So Netflix, are you saying that because some people might only watch one thing and not the other, that the one thing shouldn't be there at all?
I am saying that the potential, again, like I'm talking about, is this something that will send somebody off the deep end and eventually incite violence towards a specific? Again, the KKK hung black people from the trees. This is not a good group of people. If I'm watching that movie, I'm saying, oh my God, this is getting me fired up. I'm going to go join the KKK. Is there some responsibility to Netflix to police that a little bit? I think so.
So I think maybe that was a really polarizing movie, but let's take Gone with the Wind for an example. That's my favorite movie of all time. I love it tremendously. It's definitely, I can see the argument of some people may think that it's glorifying slavery in a sense. But it's not. You see how bad things were. You see some of them get abused, and you can see it if you look deep. That movie, again, is one that I'm sure Jeff will be forced eventually to watch in film school. He'll do it begrudgingly.
They will not make us watch Gone with the Wind. We refer to it, but it's fucking 12 hours long.
It's the greatest movie ever made. So,
it's a great movie. And
it's also a movie
I hated it.
The very first African American that won an Academy Award ever was Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
It's a movie about a woman who empowers herself during the Civil War. She doesn't need a man. So I don't really, that should not be taken away, but HBO has taken it off. Now, is that HBO's choice? Like you just said, is Netflix responsible for what they put out? I think it is the choice of the platform if they want to put it out or not.
It's certainly their choice. Absolutely. I'm saying the pressure they're giving into from these ghouls, from these fucking trolls, is not pressure they should be giving into. They should add and not subtract.
Well,
don't just take it off because somebody doesn't like it. It's like the people that said, "Oh, Chick-fil-A should be shut down because they're against gays." How about you just don't ever go to Chick-fil-A again because you don't support their ideology and let everybody else do what the fuck they want?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
I agree with. Absolutely.
I do. And here's where this is why it's so difficult because Gone with the Wind was not. It's not a racist movie. It's a period piece depicting what life was like back then. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a very different situation. Now, again, the reason why it's so difficult to talk about this and come to an actual conclusion is because who gets to decide that? Like, someone could watch that and interpret it as a racist movie. Now, my thought is those people that think that way just don't watch it. HBO filters movies in and out all the time. Why did they specifically pick Gone with the Wind this month? I think it's obvious. You know,
right.
I think again, these companies. If I owned HBO, I am not going to concede to this group of Twitter trolls because they don't like the movie. You know what I mean?
I think the ultimate problem here, we keep going back to that group, the group of SJWs. And I think everyone on this panel can agree that they suck at life and should probably all jump off a bridge.
I certainly agree with that.
Well, and we can also agree on this, like us being reasonable people talking about this and being open to discussion and having this discussion. We're not the ones writing into HBO and tagging them on Twitter and attacking them on social media saying, we want you to keep Gone with the Wind, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
they're only hearing one side.
Go ahead.
I say that I didn't know what SJW stood for right away, and I was embarrassed to ask, so I waited. I was so glad that you said spelled it out because I was like reading the outline, and I'm like, all right, SJW. fuck is that? Fuck. And then,
So
like, you said it right off the bat. So I was like, thank God. All right, yeah, fuck them.
So I learned you something today. Can we get a hashtag like Leah Schools Mounts or something?
Absolutely not. So
That should
if
be-
you if you guys follow me on Facebook, you saw me put an all caps rage post about these people that are trying to get Split taken off Netflix
Fucking
and every platform.
ridiculous.
It's
It
so
is
absurd.
fucking ridiculous.
But I had second thoughts after I posted it. Not that I'm not angry that these people are on this, but on this tear. But the fact that if I'm going to argue that Alex Jones should be if Netflix or YouTube can make the decision to take off like an Alex Jones or anything that they want, how am I so upset about this? And the thing about it, Split is a fictional narrative movie. It was not made with the intention on misleading people on the facts of DID, which is a terrible disease that people suffer from. It's you suffer from multiple personalities. Their argument is that the movie depicts people with DID as inherently violent. But
No, they had a fucking
no-
character in that movie who was violent, who happened to also be experiencing this condition. The point is, Jeff, and that's, I think, and I don't want to be too presumptuous, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the reason you had second thoughts was you're like, shit, now it doesn't quite add up because I said it about Jones, but now it's like I'm kind of saying the opposite about this. That's why I think add, not subtract is such a powerful idea, because you could say, you know what, maybe some people could get the wrong idea about people that experience DID by watching Split. So you know what, we're going to actually have an educational documentary that we're going to sponsor really explaining this. You could add that to the consumable material for the populace. And if they choose to not see it, that's on them. My whole point is, content does not equal intent. Okay, like I wrote Solving Cadence Moore. There is everything from incest. Incest, rape, violence, racism, everything in that book by bad characters doing those things. Just because a work of art depicts something does not mean it endorses that thing. And that's
Right.
where people got their heads fucking screwed on loosely and don't really, they're not thinking straight. I can talk very clearly about my thoughts on, pedophilia, incest, rape, racism, all those things, violence, drug use, drinking, blah, blah, blah. I can tell you my real opinions. If you want to know it as the author, I can tell you that. That doesn't mean that my intent in writing that book was to promote these things. It was to write real life characters who were doing real life shit.
Right.
Right.
And it's like, look, imagine if these assholes put as much energy into bringing awareness to the disease instead of raging against a fictional work of art that was not vindictive in any way towards people with this disease. It was a dramatized Hollywood movie.
Yep.
It was over exaggerated so that people would want to watch it and create suspense and create emotion. That's what movies do. That's why we watch them. We suspend, but just like wrestling, we suspend belief for a couple of hours when we go to see a movie. Nobody left that movie thinking, "Oh my God, I am terrified of people with DID."
Right.
Like nobody felt that, but these people are arguing that that's the way it is. Like it was like M. Night Shyamalan, was born to attack people with DID. Like fuck that. Like
And your
put
phrase-
your energy into something positive.
Your phrase, bring awareness, Jeff, and I'm sorry, then I'm going to go back to you, Leah, because I know you're trying to say something. Jeff, your phrase, bring awareness, is synonymous with my phrase of add.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree with that. I don't disagree with the ad part. I'm just saying, again, and who gets to decide this? I don't know that answer. I'll just say that, I'll say that again and again and again. I don't know the answer to that, but there are certain things. There is a line somewhere.
So, yeah, there is, and I have 2 points. One, I saw I shared it today on Twitter. Sydney Chase posted, and all it said was, "Where do you want the monument? Where would you like the or statue built after someone steals your children?" Like basically saying, where do you want your child? Somebody takes your kid, and then kidnaps them. You never see them again, takes them to a different country and turns them into sex workers. Where do you want that statue built? And when you think about it that way, that's going back to tearing down or taking down or adding. You can't just add a plaque because it's more than just knowledge. It is infringing on people's lives. Every time, I would assume 9 times out of 10, when Black people look at a Civil War, monument or statue, and they have to remember how they got to this country and what their ancestors went through. It's a slap in the face every single time. And that goes back to being, yes, it is racist. The statues is racism, and racism impedes on the race that you're being racist against. It impedes on their civil liberties.
And also, it's a reminder that half the country still supports that.
Absolutely. That's another point. That's also how they're, and it's again impeding on their civil liberties because half of the country is okay with them not having rights.
They'd rather fight for that statue being there and the Confederate flag flying than racial justice, finally achieving racial justice. They are more upset about a statue than the actual real issue, which is
and
racial injustice over 400 years.
A lot of that might be coming from their own racism. Let's not forget that. That's what you guys are saying. But that's what you guys are pointing out. My whole point is that I said it was a debatable point whether they should be on government buildings or not, because certainly the Confederate flag, are you really going to fly a terrorist symbol on your current government building? You don't really fly the losing team's colors, right? So, but my point is, if an African American wanted to go into an American history museum, then they are saying, I am okay with seeing these symbols and understanding the history of everything that happened. Should it be in their face everywhere they go? No. And I'm not saying that. And add, not subtract. Again, I don't think or speak in absolutes. Very rarely I do anyway. And I don't think of this as an absolute. I think of it of a way of thinking. Okay, add. First, try to add, not subtract. And if you can't add and not subtract, and something's got to go on some level, then okay, let's talk specifically about those things. But here's what's so insidious and dangerous about what's happening with this public pressure that's causing these media companies to lose their minds and cancel everything, right? It is that if this movement can see, oh shit, all we got to do is raise this kind of ruckus about a white actor can't voice a black character because it's just another example of our privilege being taken advantage of, and this and that, and these things that catch on. And I'm not speaking on that one way or the other. You can have your opinion on it. I can have my opinion on it. We can talk about it if you want. My point to saying it though was when they see that these movements can cause such strong action by major power brokers in Hollywood. And guys, where the money is, the power is. Okay, yeah. Hollywood's very, very powerful. So if these guys get a fucking foothold in there and they start changing the way things are done, how long will it be until that translates to the way that the country is run? I don't think, if you think that money and power are not synonymous or the same exact damn thing in the long run, I think you're misreading the way things go. So I would say that's what's so insidious about this whole thing, that if this gains traction and these fuckers see that they can just play their games and use their tactics and cause shit to go crazy, how long will it be until you've got the power to influence something the way that speech legislation was influenced in the Canadian Law C-16? How long will it be until that starts happening in the States? I don't think very long.
But are you okay with boycotting? Are you okay with who was that lady, the cook? I can't think of her name. She said the N-word. She was a
Paula
chef.
Deen.
Paula Deen, yeah.
So Paula Deen's career is over.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. She still has restaurants. And
she came back.
But not like before, okay? And it was over for a while. Let's just say when it happened.
Yeah, she was in the shits for a while, but she worked her way back. That's
different. And that's public pressure, right? It was the public pressure. So are you okay with something like that? If I say something on T and I say something incredibly offensive, and every person that listens to us stops listening, then the podcast, where we put the podcast, how we do that, has
Right.
the right to take down the podcast, and you guys have the right to fire me for that.
Right.
So-
There's a big difference
So what
between.
I'm saying is, with the public pressure, it's happening, yes, but are you saying that even if there is public pressure, they should ignore it and keep allowing people to do what they're doing?
No,
No,
and I
you-
know Mounts has a point on this, which I'm going to go back to you, Mounts, as soon as I answer Leah's direct question. You said boycott, okay?
Right.
Boycott entails something that I would not support. Protest all you want. Protest Paula Deen all the day long for being a racist, okay? And if enough people protest her as a racist and they're like, you know what, I'm not going to watch that bitch anymore because she's a racist. If her audience sinks to like record low levels, I guarantee you she's going to be gone anyway. But should there be this immediate reaction where it's like, uh-oh, Paula Deen said something on the banned list, she can't say that, we're going to boycott her, she's gone, get her out now. That's where I think the issue is. Protest all you want, but to call for a boycott because somebody said something on the banned list and we're not willing to do an investigation and see what public sentiment on this really is. If she still maintained her, or I should say retained her audience after that that stuff came out, then no, I don't think she should be deplatformed unless the company that it was hosting her and promoting her, it went against their core values, and they're like, you know what? We don't. After knowing what Paula Deen thinks about these things, we don't choose to do business with her anymore. That is their right to do that. As far as the automatic public pressure of, hey, you said something we don't like, boycott it, get rid of it. That is a dangerous way to think. Is all I'm saying.
I agree with that, the instant way that they do it. But to boycott, and when I say boycott, I mean stop buying things from the companies that sponsor Paula Deen
Absolutely. You
until
should
they
do
pull
that.
their sponsorship.
If
Is
you don't
that
believe,
okay?
yeah, if you don't believe in it,
Okay.
don't fucking support it. If you that goes with anything. If you don't
Correct.
believe in it, stop watching it. Stop looking at it. Stop
we're-
giving
Change the
it.
channel.
We're
Change
over
it.
30 minutes, Mounts. What are your thoughts on this?
No, I was just gonna say there's a huge difference between not watching Paula Deen and her shit show getting canceled to Roseanne doing 5 fucking disgusting acts and ABC finally being like, all right, well, what else? Like, what's next? Like,
Yeah.
Roseanne did 5 terrible things in 3 years. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
and there's also a big difference between now what I was reading about HBO, they removed it until they're going to find a way to explain, or not explain, but
You're talking Gone
Precur-
with the Wind?
precursor Gone with the Wind. They didn't permanently remove it. They feel it's irresponsible to not, but then, that's also part of the problem. It's a fictional work should be left alone. Like, I agree with
Mhm.
you. There's no, people should make the decision. If you don't want to watch
It's not,
it, don't
you know, yeah.
Right. But I think, with Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, I think they're leaving
That pisses me off so bad.
like if you don't like it, don't watch it. And I don't see them removing it. So I don't.
Well, the thing about that too, this is why this is so ridiculous, Mounts, and we're on the same page here, is the character that Robert Downey Jr. played in the movie is white.
Right.
His
Right.
character got hired to play a black guy.
Right.
That
That's-
was the joke.
Yeah.
He didn't get hired as a white actor to play a black character. That's a problem in and of itself that we
Yes.
can discuss. He got hired to play a white character. He is
Right.
in fact white. And we have
Robert
to,
Downey Jr. is also a very bankable star, so there's a fucking double standard.
right.
Yeah.
So here's what I'll say, and then we'll take a break. I sometimes do speak in absolutes, Greg. So I'm going to say something absolute here. If somebody is some podunk redneck racist piece of shit wants to jerk off to a Confederate statue, he should be forced to go to a museum and do it in fucking public. That's what I'm saying. That should be an absolute.
Well, here's the thing.
You got to go to jail for that, Jeff.
But-
Well, look, these guys are so fucking turned on by these things. The Confederate flag, they sleep with it. They live and breathe it. It's disgusting how
You know,
they fight for this and defend it. Do it in public.
In Germany, they can't even have a swastika or eagles. I mean, you can't have them there. There's no monuments to Hitler. We have monuments to people that went to war to be able to enslave human beings.
Let me ask a question. I mean, I know genocide is a word that we should not throw around loosely. The amount of black people that were killed during the peak slave years, does that rise to the level of genocide? Like, are we ignoring the fact that perhaps that is something we're not addressing?
I think you certainly make an argument that it falls into a genocide category, but I would also say, while I understand Leah is 100% correct that Germany has made the public display of those things illegal, and you can agree or disagree with that, but I would say Hitler is a guy that should absolutely be remembered and not disremembered.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So let's think about that too.
Well,
So,
by making it illegal to display the swastika, have we forgotten Hitler? I don't think so.
I would hope not. I
don't think we have.
That's an important distinction. You cannot, just because the N-word is referred to in Tom Sawyer, it says, N-word Jim, he's referred to as. We're not going to change history. You cannot let people, that's horrible. You cannot change things because you don't like what they said today. It's part of our history, and that needs to stay the way it is. We're not going to change anything that's already there, but we should start acknowledging that it is there.
Also, that's a character reciting that line. No one is calling, the author isn't calling somebody like a real person that again, very, very different. This is why this is so touchy. Let's take a break, and we'll get to the third segment here. This is a long episode. It's going to end up being a long episode. Typical White Horse fashion, but I hope you're enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying this conversation. So, a quick break, and we'll be right back.